After 15 years as a registered nurse, you think you've seen it all. I've held the hands of the dying, I've cleaned up messes you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy, and I know every single groan and creak a hospital makes in the dead of night. I thought I was immune to the ghost stories, the little bits of gossip that float around the ward after dark. To me, they were just that. Stories. Especially the ones about Room C. When I started the night shift on the 3rd floor, I actually laughed when my colleagues said to avoid it. I'm not laughing now. I don't work there anymore. I don't think I can ever set foot in a hospital again. Not after what I saw. Section 1. The Setup. The 3rd floor of St. Jude's is in an older wing of the hospital. You know the type. The linoleum is permanently scuffed, and the air has that faint, sharp medicinal smell that never really leaves. It was a place for transitions. Patients came here to recover from major surgeries or to live out their last few days in palliative care. As you can imagine, death was a regular visitor. And because of that, ghost stories were basically part of the job description. If you're a night nurse, you have to have at least one good one. How else are you supposed to get through those long, quiet hours when the rest of the world is asleep? The legend of Room C was the 3rd floor's masterpiece. They all said it was just wrong. The details changed depending on who was telling the story. One of the older nurses, Maria, swore she saw a patient get dragged halfway out of bed by something she couldn't see. A young tech named Ben said he heard a woman whispering his name from inside the empty room. But most of the stories were about the call bell. It would go off, a sharp, demanding ring, but the room would always be empty. The official explanation was faulty wiring. It's amazing what you can blame on faulty wiring. I didn't believe a word of it. I'm a person of science, of facts, of things I can see and touch. A shadow is just a shadow. A cold spot is a drafty window. A voice is just your mind playing tricks on you after a 12-hour shift under fluorescent lights. Hospitals are emotional places filled with grief and pain and fear. It makes people suggestible. So when my charge nurse, Sarah, handed me my patient list on my first night and I saw an admission for Room C, I just nodded. "Oh, you got C," she said, trying way too hard to sound casual. "Just keep an eye on it." "Don't worry," I told her, clipping the chart to my board. "I'm not afraid of a little gossip." She gave me this look I couldn't quite figure out. It was part pity, part something else. "It's not gossip, Clara. Just be careful." The patient was a sweet elderly man, Mr. Henderson, recovering from a hip replacement. A little confused, but totally stable. I got him settled, took his vitals, and made sure he was comfortable. The room was at the very end of the hall, isolated. It did feel colder than the rest of the floor, but I figured it was just the big window on the far wall. As I left, I looked back. It was just a room. A bed, monitors, a table, a chair in the corner. Nothing to be scared of. Section 2. Escalating Events. The first few hours of the shift were completely normal. I did my rounds, updated charts, drank some lukewarm coffee. The quiet hum of the hospital was almost peaceful. Then, around 2 a.m., it happened. The call light for Room C lit up the main panel with a single, sharp beep. I sighed. Mr. Henderson, probably tangled in his blankets. I walked the long, quiet hallway, my shoes squeaking on the linoleum. But as I got closer, I saw the door was cracked open. The light from the hall spilled onto the bed. It was empty. The sheets were still tucked in, perfectly smooth. My heart did a little jump. Mr. Henderson had been discharged hours ago. His family picked him up right before my shift started. The room had been cleaned and prepped for the next patient. I'd been so busy, I'd completely forgotten. I stepped into the room and walked over to the bed. My hand hovered over the call button clipped to the pillow. It was still. I switched the alert off at the wall panel. My mind immediately went into problem-solving mode. A short circuit, a power surge, faulty wiring. Annoying, but not supernatural. I made a mental note to call maintenance in the morning and pulled the door almost shut. I tried to shake it off, but something had shifted. The comfortable hospital sounds, the hum of the ice machine, the distant ding of the elevator, now felt like a thin layer over a deep, waiting silence. An hour later, I was back at the nurse's station when I felt a sudden, piercing chill, the kind that makes the hair on your arms stand up. I looked up. No vents were blowing on me. It was just a pocket of cold that appeared from nowhere and then vanished. And then I saw it. Down at the far end of the hall, in the deep shadows just past the lights, something moved. It wasn't a person's shadow. It was too tall, too thin. It darted from the wall by room C and disappeared into the unlit stairwell. I shot to my feet, my heart pounding. "Hello," I called out. My voice sounded tiny. No answer. That was the moment my rational brain started to lose the argument. A glitchy call bell is one thing. A shadow figure is something else entirely. I did a quick walkthrough of the floor. All my patients were asleep. The stairwell doors were heavy and locked at night. No one could have gone through them without making a hell of a noise. I went back to the station and sat with my back to the wall. The friendly quiet was gone. Now the silence felt predatory. I kept my eyes glued to the cardiac monitor, watching the steady green lines of my patient's heartbeats. All steady, all alive. That's when I heard the whisper. It was faint, like a breath right next to my ear. It said one word: mine. I flinched back, spinning in my chair. The station was empty. There was nobody there, but the sound. It had been so clear. A man's voice, raspy and possessive. It felt like it had been spoken inside my own head. That wall of skepticism I was so proud of? It crumbled into dust. The stories weren't just stories. Maria, Ben, all the others. They weren't trying to be spooky. They were trying to warn me. Section 3. The climax. The last call from room C came around 3:30 a.m., what the old-timers call the witching hour. This time, it wasn't just one beep. The light on the panel flashed manically, and the bell shrieked without stopping, a desperate, piercing sound that sliced through the ward. It wouldn't stop. Every nurse on the floor was about to wake up. Everyone would know. A wave of pure, liquid terror washed over me, but there was adrenaline in it too. This felt like a challenge. It was telling me to come. My feet felt like they were stuck to the floor, but I made myself move. I had to shut it off. With every step down the hall, the air got colder. By the time I reached the door to room C, I could see my own breath misting in front of me. The room was dark, but the ringing was my entire world. I pushed the door open. The ringing stopped. Just like that. The silence that rushed in was worse. It was heavy, absolute, and suffocating. The room was freezing, a deep penetrating cold that felt ancient, and it wasn't empty anymore. Over in the corner where the shadows were the thickest, a figure was standing. It was tall and gaunt, a silhouette of pure darkness shaped like a man. It had no face, no features, just an outline that seemed to swallow the dim light from the hallway. I was frozen. I couldn't breathe. My scientific mind just switched off, leaving nothing but raw, animal fear. This was the shadow from the hall. This was the voice. This was the thing in room C. It didn't move. It just stood there, watching. But I could feel it. The anger, the possessiveness. It was an old, hateful presence, and I was an intruder in its space. The air grew thick, pressing in on me until my ears popped. There was a crushing weight on my chest, like the room itself was trying to squeeze the life out of me. The hospital's medicinal scent was gone, replaced by the smell of something old and rotten. The figure slowly raised an arm, a long, spindly limb made of shadow. It pointed a finger, not at me, but at the empty bed. The message hit me like a physical blow. This was his room. He didn't like another man in his room, but it was more than that. It wasn't just about the bed. The feeling I got was one of total ownership. This entire space belonged to it. My training finally kicked in, not the nursing part, the flight or fight part. and there was no fight in me. I stumbled back, my hand slapping against the doorframe, my eyes locked on the figure. I yanked the door shut, turned, and I ran. I didn't stop running until I burst through the double doors of the ward and into the main, brightly lit corridor of the hospital. I never looked back. I quit the next day. I didn't give a real reason, just mumbled something about personal issues. Sarah didn't push. She just looked at me with those knowing, pitying eyes and nodded. She knew. They all did. Some things just can't be explained away by science. Some places are just wrong. I think pain and tragedy can soak into the walls of a place, leaving something behind, a dark stain that stays long after everyone else is gone. I moved out of the city a few months later, trying to put some real distance between me and St. Jude's. But I don't think any part of me will ever truly escape Room C. Sometimes in the dead of night, when the house is completely still, I hear it. A faint, distant sound that makes my blood run cold. It's the sound of a call bell ringing, and it never stops. If you've ever had an experience you just can't explain, something that truly chilled you, share it in the comments below. And for more terrifying tales, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. You never know what's waiting for you in the dark.